You're going to do your test.
All right, so we're going to move along to voting. I'm going to start with a test question again, and everyone needs to get reset up and reconnected to the voting software, and you should have instructions in your packet. If you were logged on before, please make sure you log off and log back on, because this is a new slide deck, and we need to reconnect.
Either place.
So maybe when, like we did before, when you log on, just kind of flip your placard up so I know who needs assistance.
Why is Steve back there? Steve Kogan. Oh, we just went to get some coffee. Okay.
So I'm going to start with just a test question, just to make sure everyone has their voting software set up. I think this is a softball. What is the name of the sea monster that allegedly lives in Lake Champlain? Champ, the serpent, Richard, or dragonfish?
I prefer Richard.
And I know we have a new CEPAC member who has joined us for the afternoon, so we should be 12 responses.
12 responses, okay.
And I am at 11.
Where's the evidence, Gene? Come on.
So I'm at 11 responses. Does anyone feel like they need help voting?
I think Al's saying the poll's closed.
All right. That is incorrect. No, I'm kidding. It is the correct answer, Champ. So now we're going to move on to voting, so I'm going to hand it off to Dan.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So let's first talk about the patient population to consider for the votes. Adult premenopausal women with symptomatic endometriosis and moderate to severe symptoms. So essentially reflecting the entry criteria in the phase 3 trials. Okay, so our first effectiveness vote. Is the evidence adequate to demonstrate that the net health benefit of elagolix is superior to that provided by no treatment? So here we're talking about the placebo comparisons. And Dr. Atlas, once you've handed out the waters, if you can remind us of what the evidence says for this particular comparison, elagolix to no treatment.
So comparing elagolix to placebo, there was demonstrated evidence in primary outcomes for both the 200 BID and the 150 milligram QD dose of statistically significant and clinically significant benefit for the primary outcomes compared to placebo. There were questions about sort of the harm side effect, as we talked about the menstrual, the hormonal effects of inducing menopause was a dose-related effect as well. And then the real questions, as we've discussed, with the long-term risks of these drugs in terms of the potential for young women with cardiovascular risk associated with elevated lipids, as well as bone mineral loss. For both of these, the comparative benefits were assessed over a short-term period up to 6 months, but there is no long-term evidence for these drugs for what is considered a chronic condition.
And that the other unknown quantity is the reason for the FDA's further interrogation of liver data.
Dan, could I just ask Steve to comment on the ICER evidence rating that you've given this, and then what and how we should interpret that and think about what promising but inconclusive is?
So we, as mentioned, rated this as promising but inconclusive. The promising was based on the efficacy data from the short-term phase 3 studies. The inconclusive related to the difficulty in assessing the long-term harm specifically. One could consider if the drug was FDA approved for a short-term course, there's adequate efficacy for a short-term benefit. So the issues around long-term harms are uncertain even with short-term use of the drugs. And as mentioned, there's uncertainty related to liver side effects for which the FDA put this drug on pause for 3 months, for which there's no evidence that we can assess either for or against or what the basis for that concern was.
Claudia?
A little further clarification. When we vote on this question, I have 2 questions. Number 1, are we saying just for the 6-month period, or we're saying long-term in regards to the timeline that we're supposed to be using? That's my first question. My second question is, when you say no treatment, do you mean no treatment, or are you including in no treatment NSAIDs or birth control pills or nothing like that?
So when we say evidence was using placebo as an active comparator, so that implies no treatment. That said, within the trial, patients were allowed to take pain medications, analgesics, both non-steroidals as well as opiate-type medications. There was no use of other hormonal treatments. We haven't talked about, there are some issues, particularly with long-term use, about whether to add low-dose hormones, sort of hormonal contraception, to GnRH agonists or antagonists. There's some data for that for Lutron, but there isn't any data for that type of therapy. But for us, we're talking about no treatment with the addition of analgesics. The issue of sort of the duration of therapy is a difficult one, and we've talked about it internally. I was presenting to you all in the fall about tardive dyskinesia, and again, a medication that was studied for short-term use, but is for a treatment for a long-term condition. So if anything, I could have you all reflect on that discussion where you all did consider that you were looking at the potential that a clinician could use this medication long-term, and that is based on our modeling, why we chose to model as such. And speaking with clinical experts, we were told that if the medication was effective in helping an individual patient, they would consider using it for a longer-term basis. And specifically, expert clinicians will use Lupron longer than the 6-month or 1-year time period if for that individual patient it is effective. Those individuals, as mentioned, the experts will often add back a low-dose either birth control pill or a progesterone only to it. And there is evidence, there is some evidence, so it's not randomized, of benefit from doing that. So that would be a consideration for why you would potentially consider this as a long-term treatment, even though there may only be short-term data available.
I'm not sure I got an answer to the question, which to me is, are we supposed to consider this as a long-term treatment for the purpose of answering the question, or are we answering the question as a short-term treatment?
I think what Steve's suggesting is that you have short-term data available to you, but there is the prospect of longer-term use of the product. This is a chronic condition. So you've got to think about what uncertainty that introduces to your vote.
We're trying to, these are why you all are here to weigh in.
Yeah.
I think what we can say is that there's evidence for short-term benefit. There isn't evidence for long-term benefit. There's uncertainty about long-term harms. The evidence for short-term harms are ones that we have seen with the GRH agonists like Lupron. Thinking about how clinicians may use an FDA-approved drug, even if that FDA-approved drug is used approved for short-term use, you all know that clinicians may use it outside of that indication if they think it would be beneficial to their individual patient.
Jason.
I'm sorry, I know we're time pressure. Just to clarify, this is an unusual situation. Let's look on this because the base case of the simulation is a 32-year-old woman with a time frame of 18 years. With just to state this explicitly, is that the cholesterol goes from 20% in a 32-year-old woman. The simulation only for 30. You're nowhere close to where the bulk of myocardial infarction occurs in a young woman. So I don't mean to influence the voting, aside from saying the net health benefit we should trigger over the course of our lifetime. Is that correct? As opposed to over the 18-year simulation. I think this
It's important to also know that the definitive treatment for endometriosis, according to ACOG standards, is a hysterectomy, which also increases risk for cardiovascular disease.
which is to say that there's a problem in the comparison.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
right. Well, and that too, that someone could go on this medicine and then also like it just adds to it.
Here's a suggestion that came from the side here. Would it be more comfortable for you to take a short-term vote and then a long-term vote? So base one vote solely on the clinical evidence and the duration of the clinical evidence before you, and then base another vote on your own long-term extrapolation. Now, keep in mind, this is not a question referring directly to the model. This is about clinical effectiveness. So, or do you feel like you have enough information now to take one vote?
That does address my issue. That would address
I think that we have to devote context and do one vote because the damage that's done is short-term, it's carried forward into potential long-term consequences. It's not like we have evidence that the bone density is just going to automatically get better or some of the cholesterol levels. I think you inherit whatever damage is done in the short term while you're getting those benefits. So it should be a lifetime one vote.
Just to weigh in on the clinical expert side, I mean, I do think that we have mechanistic evidence that in general these differences in bone density, cholesterol abnormalities for short-term treatments like Lupron do tend to go back to normal with the endogenous estrogen of these young women. So I think there is reason to believe that with short-term therapy that these are reversible changes.
Since we're
passion aside, I don't have a sense of how frequently the therapy really is short-term, and this is a long-term, lifelong, or at least under menopause illness. Do people really only get treated for 6 months?
I usually prone short-term, quite often, and with the idea that you get the endometriosis in remission. The ladies are correct, it doesn't go away. But I get it into, if they become pain-free in 6 months of Lupron, then I switch them to continuous birth control pills where they have no period. And I do that quite a bit. But I also have a few patients that once they switch into birth control pills and take them off the Lupron, the pain comes back and they're in tears and I can't work. And I have had patients on Lupron for many years with very careful counseling about risk benefits. And, they do reasonably well now because they don't want surgery or they've already had surgery.
And I can also just mention that most general gynecologists, we have sort of a biased sample here, but will not do Lupron more than 6 months because of the labeling that's put on that medication. And so I think this may end up having a similar labeling. And I think all of the most experienced subspecialists will probably not feel comfortable extending that for 18 years.
I think as a patient advocate, I've had completely different experiences in regards to patients being treated with doctors. And I mean, I work with teenagers who've been put on Lupron for like 4 years, so I'm respectfully disagreeing.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, just one reason to consider this, I think, is because this is before the FDA label. So it's possible the FDA label will specify 6 months, but we don't know for sure. We've heard that even for drugs that are labeled at 6 months, some clinicians will use them for an extended time. So if we have a short-term vote, it means that you would want to think about the long-term effects for 6 months of use as one vote, and then the harms and benefits if it's used repeatedly over a much longer time period. I think that will help address some of the concerns that have been raised about how to weigh the short-term versus long-term issue.
Steve.
I'm so sorry. In the simulation for that base case, how many years are these women on medication?
Well, it's a proportion of women and very few discontinued over that 18 years because that was the evidence that we were given from the trial. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Steve.
I was just going to say a caveat that I had with parsing it out into short-term and longer-term is short-term benefits. The long-term effects may persist even with short-term use for period.
I think that's why Steve suggested think about short-term use, but your time horizon should be long-term for the potential effects, benefits, and harms. Then think about extended use in the same way. So let's do that. Let's take this vote twice. The first vote would be with short-term use. Is the evidence adequate to demonstrate that short-term use of elagolix provides a net health benefit superior to that provided by placebo/no treatment? 6 months or less of treatment. But think...
Can we do a vote if we want to do two or not? Because I'm not sure. I'd rather do just one vote, so I don't know that we all want to split it, but I don't know what other people think. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not the person to ask, despite the awesome power of the chair.
If you'd like to have a show of hands about whether you want to do 2 votes or 1, then let's say, how many want 2 votes? 2 people. Okay, I thought I saw a lot more nodding about that. 3 people. No.
I guess I want more information. We have no other information on the liver issue.
We asked repeatedly.
We're assuming it is potentially a short-term harm if it's coming out in the trial, correct? I mean...
We have no idea. We asked the company several times. We got no response. I mean, it may be that they couldn't respond if it's actually actively under investigation by the FDA, but we got not even a hint of what this means. And there's nothing, as Steve Atlas mentioned, there's nothing in the trial reports about this either. So So I think maybe harken back to something that Rob Azeltine mentioned this morning, which is that this vote could be about what you see in front of you in terms of the evidence. It could also be about whether you think you have enough evidence to even take a vote. So you can read the question two different ways. So it sounds like it's still the majority feels that they want one vote. Okay. It's based on the data you have, which is short-term treatment data, and your thoughts about how this might be used over the long term. Got 11 responses. 12 responses. That's right. We have 12 today, or this afternoon. Okay. 1 yes, 11 no. Okay. So, that hopefully took more time than the other two will take. Because we want to get to our roundtable conversation. It should be an interesting one. So now we'll talk about one of the head-to-head comparisons. So is the evidence adequate to demonstrate that the net health benefit of elagolix is superior to that provided by the GnRH agonist lupron acetate? Lupron, yeah. And Steve Atlas, can you remind us of the evidence for this particular question?
As described previously, there was one of the 5 trials that had a direct comparator between the 150 milligram dose of the elagolix and standard dose of Lupron. As commented, it was a small trial. The number of patients involved was limited. There were some differences in baseline characteristics. There was a lot of challenges in interpreting that data. In general, the data showed that the two drugs were comparable for some measures, though in other measures, such as I described, quality of life, the Lupron actually was superior. There was actually very little reporting within the trial of comparative harms between those two drugs. As you all know, the FDA has approved Lupron based on older trials that we summarized in the full report. But in terms of the head-to-head comparison, we were very limited, and for that reason, we rated this as inconclusive. Did not make a specific recommendation for it.
Any questions from the panel? Concerns? No. Ready to vote? Only 2 of you need to vote at this point. 10 of you already have. Okay. Unanimous? No. Okay. Okay, so the next evidence vote is based on the other head-to-head comparison. Is the evidence adequate to demonstrate that the net health benefit of elagolix is superior to that provided by the hormonal contraceptive depomedroxyprogesterone? Yes or no? And Steve, can you remind us of what the evidence says?
So basically, this is again very similar. One of the other phase 2 trials had a direct comparison between 2 different doses of elagolix and depomedroxyprogesterone, which is a progesterone that's available as a long-term therapy, similar to the Lupron. These are a small trial. The evidence shows that there was no qualitative difference between the 150 milligram dose and the depomedroxyprogesterone. This trial had very little reporting of statistical data of any type. There was some reporting of side effects, and the side effects were qualitatively similar between the two. There are no other relevant trials that found that directly compared other to elagolix. So we use this as sort of a single agent that's reflecting hormonal contraceptives, and given the limited data, we also rated this similar to leupromazine conclusive.
Okay, questions from the panel? Seeing none, and the votes are already in. Again, unanimous no. Okay. So Brett's up at the table looking handsome, but he doesn't actually get to answer any questions about the value vote because there won't be one, in part because the majority of the panel ruled that the evidence was not adequate to demonstrate a net health benefit in that first comparison.
But it's a great model.
It is a great model. We will talk, however, about other benefits and disadvantages as well as contextual considerations. So, for other benefits and or disadvantages, they're listed here. In this particular case, reduced complexity. Will the use of elagolix reduce important health disparities? Will it reduce caregiver and or family burden? Does it represent a novel mechanism of action or approach? I think you've heard something about that already. Is there a significant impact on improving return to work or overall productivity? And any other important benefits or disadvantages that you might see?
I'm sorry. Am I allowed to make a comment here? I don't want to influence voting, but I can't help but notice that elagolix is getting pretty slammed. And it's not to say that I don't think there are some serious concerns, especially with the liver issues, which we don't know much about, and with long-term concerns. But I think that there may be room to consider that this is a new drug with a novel mechanism and a novel application that it may ultimately have some role. And so I don't want to necessarily give the impression that just because I'm obviously supportive of excisional surgery in extreme cases, there's a very wide range. And although we have two very vocal and very eloquent advocates here, there's a wide range of patient experiences, and there is actually a wide range of patients who are really calling for other FDA-approved treatments, given that nothing's been approved for 20 years. These are not curative, they're suppressive, but there may be a role for suppressive agents. So I want to balance things maybe just a little bit, because I'm seeing a pretty strong consensus from the panel. So I just wanted to give a medical perspective that I have some interest. I think Dr. Rinsky has some interest in seeing where this could potentially go for patients.
I would also suggest that we already have a hormonal suppressive in the form of oral contraceptives, which are usually well tolerated, well studied, and easily available. I think patients are clamoring for access to better care. That does not necessarily mean medical care. And I am a huge fan of yours, as you know, and with all due respect, we live in this disease. We live in the communities that are struggling with this disease. We are immersed in this disease. We don't just go to our offices at our centers and see our patients and have our surgeons work on them, have our nurses treat them, and go home. We sit with the broken who have failed all of these treatments to date. So I would suggest if we are going to involve, and perhaps we should involve, hormonal therapy, is this the hormonal therapy that we should? I don't have the answer to that. What I can tell you is that historically, personally, and after 30 years of working in endometriosis, GnRH analogs have done nothing for endometriosis. There are patients who do tolerate it well. There are patients who do have good outcomes, temporarily. If we want to talk about medication, let's talk about oral contraceptives. Cheap, affordable, accessible, still so far. Well tolerated, that's all.
So this is a great start to my roundtable conversation. You guys are doing a great job. We just want to get through these couple of votes, but I think the kinds of issues that you're raising are going to be key to that discussion we're going to be having. So despite the votes, we know that there will be clinical interest, and payers will have to consider this drug when it's approved. So we're going to talk about all of the things you've just raised for the next 90 minutes or so, but let's take these votes now and finish our business here, and then we can get into the meat of that conversation. So you've got the list here. There's just a couple of you who have not responded yet, so you can finish off your votes for the other benefits and or disadvantages. Okay. So, for each for reduced complexity and reductions in important health disparities. Oh, sorry. I forgot about reduced complexity was 0. So 4 for reduce important disparities and 4 for reduce caregiver burden, 9 for novel mechanism of action or approach, 5 for significant impact on improving return to work or productivity, and 6 other important benefits or disadvantages. So does anybody want to comment on what they considered? I'm interested in 2 things, actually. What you considered to be other important benefits or disadvantages, and also how you think the drug will reduce important disparities. Brian.
So, and getting back to what I said earlier, I thought that having a medication available to people who might not have access to the types of surgeries they need would reduce a health care disparity. So that's why I looked at that.
Okay. Gina, did you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm often affected by this disease. I'm particularly affected by this one. I'm really quite angry that a condition that affects 10% of women, which 10% of the women I have known for my whole life have had endometriosis, and I can think of them. I can think of many of them. I'm really angry at the way we've allocated our resources to address this condition, and that women's conditions and women's pain is counted. So I'm not a fan of this drug. I want more options, and I'm mad.
Okay, Chris.
I just echo those concerns. I think it's very important that we recognize the complexities of these votes. If we are too promotional of a pharma option, then we might gainsay the importance of surgical intervention. If we slam a novel women's health pharma option, judging from the lack of a lot of representation from pharma in the audience, they may just kill those pipelines as they have for many years, and so I think it's very important to at least consider options and to make it easier for business cases to be built around women's health.
Pharma is well represented in every single study on this drug because they paid for every single study and every single positive outcome.
And just in response to that, I've just seen, having worked in pharma, not in companies here, but in pharma, I've seen too many very good, potentially very good pipeline candidates get killed because they were afraid of anything to do with women's health.
Ed.
I responded based upon the opening quote for this afternoon, which was, we need a breakthrough. We haven't had one in 20 years. The downside for me is if we think this is the breakthrough, we're barking up the wrong tree. So that's why I'm trying to look for F. But I did want to get back to your point that I'm not ready to throw the baby out. I would still vote yes on short-term use. Just for the pain relief. I have patients who they cannot sleep at night and they're asking for opioids. And if this keeps someone from getting addicted to opioids and dying from a fentanyl overdose, then I think we've done them a short-term disservice by not giving them pain relief for 6 months, or as a bridging therapy for something else.
I mean, I'd love to sit down with you and give you other resources that could potentially free them from opioid use without, taking a drug where we're uncertain of the long-term impact. So it's not one or the other. It's not opioid use or this drug. There's a whole bunch of multidisciplinary options that unfortunately the majority of gynecologists cannot represent. So I think we're worried about informed consent. We don't mind elagolix being offered, but also has to be offered all the other tools that have less side effects. And unfortunately, patients are not having informed consent.
Okay, I'm going to steer us back from the roundtable to this last vote, and then we'll get to the roundtable, I promise. I'm not sure. You may have answered all my questions already. I don't know. So the last vote is on contextual considerations. So important contextual considerations for assessing, yes, I know we're not taking a value vote, but the long-term value for money. And so many of these are condition-specific. Care for individuals with a condition of high severity, condition has high lifetime burden of illness. The agent is the first to offer any improvement to patients. Compared to no treatment, the major comparator here, there's significant uncertainty about long-term risk of serious side effects. Similarly, significant uncertainty about long-term magnitude or durability of benefits. And then any other important contextual considerations that you have. And then we're going to take this vote, and then I will pivot us into the roundtable because we're already a little bit over time here. Okay. So here we've got a condition of high severity. 10 voted yes. 8 voted yes for a condition with high lifetime burden of illness. 1 voted that this was the first to offer any improvement. 9 voted that there's significant uncertainty about serious side effects long term. Similar vote for benefits long term. And then 7 had other important contextual considerations. So can anyone think of an other important contextual consideration that doesn't actually represent a roundtable theme? If not? Okay, so why don't we move into the roundtable? We're skipping the value vote.